Tri-State Sports guys. Top 10.
You still angry about Brian Cumble tonight?
I knew it was coming.
Did you really?
Yeah, that's why I let you go first. I had heard about that.
Okay.
I didn't know he was going to, but I had heard about it. This week's top 10 as always comes from the fans. Great job. Hit us on the Facebook page or
from Cowboy Ireland.
Cowboy Ireland.
From one of our sponsors, O'Neill's Pub and Restaurant down in South Norwalk.
And he wanted to know, based on the Harbaugh Schwartz situation in Detroit.
Which was awesome.
Yeah, which was ridiculous.
Can we talk about it quick before we...
Go for it. Why don't you just take it away? Take it away.
Well, let's talk about the thing, because I thought both sides... I think both sides were wrong, but I think both sides were... It was awesome that it happened.
Classic.
Lions,
it was so awesome.
Lions lose their first game. Niners go to 5-1. They meet at the center.
He doesn't even
Harbaugh
break stride. He shakes his hand and basically just pushes him away.
And
you see him go, what?
He shoved. Yeah,
and it was not this.
He
It
shoved
was
him.
It was in the back and
Move
shoves
along.
him out of the way.
Move along,
now,
son.
Earlier in the game, they had 49ers had a 15-yard penalty for or whatever the penalty. I don't know if it's 10 or 15 yards, whatever, for an illegal challenge because they threw the challenge flag for a play that was not challengeable.
Yelled at him
and you could see his mouth going, "No, the effing rules." Schwartz. So it's not like this guy's this high-class act. And then he follows him down there and starts bumping him.
Yeah, it was. What was weird was
Harbaugh would have laid.
Is he short? That guy, the coach of the line, because
He's not big
seem
like
like
Harbaugh was an NFL
He did a
quarterback.
lot. It was a lot of roller derby running them into the board.
Roller derby's a good analogy. I like
It was a lot. It was like
Harbaugh's like turning,
first of all,
looking at him like,
why
what are you doing, son?
Why don't you give one of these? Like, get his attention.
Yeah.
What is this? Like, what is that?
And I think the way that
And he was running around all
Harbaugh
the
handled it was
players.
funny because he was taking like responsibility for it, but he was also kind of making fun of him. Like, yeah, he shook his hand too hard. Like, you're such a wimp, dude. I shook your hand too hard.
And then Schwartz said he was like, well, he cursed at me. Like, dude, you're a coach of the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
I'm sure you heard it. Yeah,
cursing.
this is the same guy that was yelling at Des Bryant the week before, getting all up in his face, or 2 weeks ago, or whatever.
So coaching feuds.
Doing a coaching feud. So this is coach versus coach. Number 10, and this was, I started out, it was kind of mild, but it was a feud that obviously made a lot of press. I went with Belichick versus Mangini because of the Spygate
That was
thing.
my number 4.
I just didn't think it was that heated enough because, plus, it was Belichick versus Mangini. It was like, this great, all-time great coach against a guy who's a horrible coach. And he did, he was like this little weaselly nerd who was like his protege.
Yeah.
And the big thing was their handshake at the end of the game, and they didn't look each other in the eye and all that stuff. So I'll let you talk more of it. That was your number 4. My number 9, and this was, and you could probably do 10 NHL fights, but I went with last year because I remember it was fresh in my mind. Then I looked it up because I don't follow the NHL, but I don't remember the guys' names. But the LA Kings versus the Calgary Flames, and it was their coach Terry Murray, and I guess he was angry that they had hit his best player a little hard. And as the game starts, they're just yelling at each other like he's F-bombing through the glass, and they're screaming at each other. It was awesome. And then you could hear the announcers like, "Well, this is a hell of a way for the game to start." Like they were still going over like starting lineups and starting lines and stuff like that, and they're fighting back and forth. And NHL coaches, you can Google it, and you can find 10 fights that they've done. Mm-hmm. Number 8, I went with Rick Neuheisel and Pete Carroll.
That was a good one.
This is when
That's my number 3.
So Pete Carroll's up 21-7. 50 seconds left in the game. He has USC take a knee. And so the game's clearly over, and UCLA calls timeout. So Pete Carroll huddles his team up.
Well, he looks at his offensive coordinator. He's like, did he just call timeout?
And then he goes deep.
They come out of the timeout, and they're spread wide.
Spread wide.
Play action, and he threw it over the top.
He throws it over the top, dude. It was like out of Rudy, like where they wanted to get a guy back
And a brawl ensued. It was awesome.
That one is... That's
my
could have
number
been,
3.
That one could have been higher. Number 7, I went with Buddy Ryan versus Jimmy Johnson in the Bounty Bowl. The Bounty Bowl is like a huge thing. So there was Jimmy Johnson basically accused Buddy Ryan. I think this was Jimmy Johnson's first year when Troy Aikman was a rookie, and he basically accused Buddy Ryan of putting a bounty out on his kicker, Tony Zendejas, and Troy Aikman.
Yeah.
And the Eagles just pummeled them like 27-0 or something. And then the next year going into it, there was this big, huge hype about it because they were calling it the Bounty Bowl too. And he claimed they did it again, and the Eagles beat the crap out of him. But Buddy Ryan, like nobody likes that guy. Yeah. And you read Rex Ryan's book, you read a lot about all the fights he got into and all. But I had to put the Bounty Bowl in there. Did Bounty Bowl make yours or no?
I put Buddy Ryan in like just a conglomerate. I focused on another game I'll get to later.
Number 6,
as you said, Buddy Ryan was hated, so I just
Number 6 is the only one that's not really a coach. It's a coach versus an owner, and I went with Mike Shanahan against Al Davis.
No, the late Al Davis, you're bringing too soon.
But it was
Too
because
soon, for God's sake.
only
God
because,
rest
and I
his
remember
soul.
hearing the story that this happened. And it was confirmed by other people on the field. So Mike Shanahan hated Al Davis, hated him,
Yeah.
and it had been going on. And Elvis Gerback was their quarterback at the time. He told Elvis Gerback just in warm-ups to throw a ball at Al Davis. Just to heave a football at him. And that guy's an old guy. At the time, he was probably 70, right? Or 60-something.
Yeah.
And Elvis Gerback was like, you really want me to do it? He's like, yeah. He fires a ball at him, and they said it was heading right towards his head. At the last minute, Al Davis looks up, and it goes by him and gives him the finger, and they're going back and forth. I mean, have you ever heard of a coach telling a guy to throw a football at a 70-year-old man?
Owner.
That's awesome. An owner of the team. The guy who's like put the
It's
NFL.
no wonder why Shanahan never got that money that he was owed.
That was so funny.
That's it. That's all there is to it.
Number 5, I went with Lane Kiffin versus Urban Meyer.
That was my number 10.
To me, this was one of the great ones when he basically, like, Lane Kiffin came in to the SEC and everybody hated him to begin with, and he's at, I guess it was like a fundraiser or it was something with
It was
the
like
alumni.
his very first like press conference, like.
But it wasn't even like a press. It was something with the
and he was like giving
a
a
pep
speech.
rally
Yeah, it
type
was his
thing.
first like speech or whatever.
And he tells a story about how he's recruiting a player, and as he's recruiting him, the kid's phone rings, and it's Urban Meyer, and he was like, "I just want to let you know, It's a breaking story. This is a NCAA violation. You're not allowed to call somebody when you know they're on the campus of another team." He called them right in front of me, but you know what? Even though we did that, we still got him, and he's like going into all this stuff. I mean, it's like,
And then he said it wasn't true. Then he took it back. He's like, actually, I apologize. That's not what happened.
all of it wasn't true. Like he didn't think that maybe they were filming
They would
this
look into,
speech.
or they'd look into that allegation.
Lane Kiffin's a jerk, but to me that was pretty funny. Number 4, this is the only one I went with that I didn't. I'll be honest, when I did my list, I had 9, so I just Googled like coaching feuds, and I went to the NHL because I knew there was gonna be a bunch. And this is actually a minor league hockey game,
Oh my
but you
goodness.
have to.
I have no hockey. You have minor league hockey.
Have to Google this. Wichita versus Tulsa,
Oh, my God.
minor league hockey. There's a brawl, like a fight. At the end of the fight, like they break it up, like the teams are ready to get back going. The two coaches are on the ice, and these two coaches just start throwing haymakers at each other. They're in their suits, and they're just decking each other. Just Google Wichita and Tulsa minor league hockey fight. It's the most amazing thing. We got to put a link up to this. It's so awesome. You see these? It's after the fight goes on for like a minute, and they break everything up, and these two guys just go at it, dude. You have to. I just Googled it, and it came up, and I looked
We
at
don't
it.
know why.
You got to take a look at it.
We don't know why the feud happened.
Well, I mean, it was a fight. They were just arguing back and
All right.
forth. I don't know why the two of them hated each other. I don't know.
I gotcha.
Number 3, moving over to baseball, I went with the Frank Robinson versus Mike Scioscia.
I was going to put that in there, but I just wasn't sure why they were arguing, so I left it out.
Look, here's what happened. So Mike Scioscia accused Frank Robinson's, it was Brandon Donnelly. He said that he had pine tar in his glove. And so he went out and complained to the umpire about it. And Frank Robinson, who was like 70 years old at the time, this old-ass dude, came charging out of the dugout and just went nuts. They had to be restrained. Old-ass Frank Robinson. I mean, he's a big dude. And he had to be restrained. You see a 70-year-old manager in his baseball
That's like
gear.
Zimmer coming after Pedro. So
It was just like that, except
When
that
he
he's
laid
much,
him.
much bigger than Don
much
Zimmer.
stronger than Don Zimmer.
And he had to be restrained by his
Yeah,
guys.
that's a good one.
So that was my number 3. Number 2, I went with the Buddy Ryan, Kevin Gilbride.
That's my number
Now
2
this
as
is
well.
coach on coach in the same
I remember
team.
that happening.
Yeah, so do I.
Sunday Night Football.
I remember that.
And he just decked the offense. He was defense.
To be fair, he had a good point.
He did have a good point.
He was mad that the Oilers were getting run off the field, and he just wanted his team to go in at the half.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted Gilbert to run the clock out, and he didn't. And he threw like a pick or something, and he was furious that his defense had to go back out there.
And he just decked them.
I
He
remember
just
the announcers. I think there's some kind of scuffle going on the Oilers sideline. You pan over and you see
Every time I see Kevin, isn't he? He's the coach of the Giants now, right? Every time I see him,
Gilbert's an offensive
every
player.
time I
offensive
see him,
coordinator.
I think of that. Every time I see
I
him.
mean, Buddy Ryan, like a 5'6" little.
He pushes them over like 3 people.
He just decked them, dude.
It was great. That was my number 2.
Number 1, I'm hoping you have the same number 1.
I'm sure we do.
John Calipari and John
Absolutely.
Chaney.
Um,
That is like when we first got this suggestion. That's the first one. I'm like, I got to go back and look and make sure.
the video.
I didn't even.
And
need to
that
look.
one we got to put on the website.
I didn't even need to look because that one is ingrained in my mind.
Yeah, exactly. I just think that it was 1994.
Yeah.
Calipari's up at the podium giving a speech, and John Chaney comes in there, and he's just like he goes after him. And he's like, "I'll kick your ass."
Oh, he
I'll
threatened to kill him.
He's
That's
not trying to kill him.
He has to be number 1 because he actually threatened to kill the person.
I will kill
When
you.
he
He goes,
threatened to
remember
do-
that. I
yeah.
will kick your ass. He goes.
When he threatened to take it that way, how can he not be number 1?
Yeah, and then Calipari just goes, "Some things never change." That's
And
how
his
he
voice is all hoarse. He comes, "I'll kill you, son of a bitch."
It was
I'll
great.
kill you. That's kind of. What do I miss?
Number 9, I had Jeff Van Gundy, Phil Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
All Van Gundy used to do in those Bulls Knicks days is complain, oh, Phil Jackson does his whine to the refs. But you know what? He was probably right, but the Bulls always won.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, right. And every coach.
Number 8, it was Calipari and Rick Pitino.
Yeah.
And
they used to be buddies.
They used to be good friends.
Yeah.
And Pitino finally, and Calipari, all he did was complain about the officials. And Pitino said something like, when people start talking about officials, that's how you know they're crazy. So they clearly aren't on speaking terms. Number 7, just last year, Josh McDaniels and Todd Haley, the coach of the Chiefs.
That was great.
There was some basically feels like McDaniel ran a score up and he went in his face to shake his hand and he just walked right by him.
Yeah.
Like, why'd you run in the middle of the field? You should just walk off.
Yeah, and you saw there's that picture
Yeah.
of them looking at each other.
I taught you. Number 6, another Pete Carroll versus Jim Harbaugh.
Yes.
Pete
So
Carroll.
I think it was Pete Carroll is just
Yeah.
a nice guy who kind of diffused it, but yeah, he goes, "What's your
Har-
problem, man?"
Yeah, Harbaugh had 48 points on him, and he went for 2 because he just wanted to even 50.
He goes, "What's your problem, man?" Or "What's your deal, man?"
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Number 5, I'm surprised the UConn guy didn't have this. I had Pat Summitt and Gino Armiano.
Yeah.
They hate each other so much, they don't even play each other anymore. They say, you know what, I'm so sick of you, I'll just see you in the national championship.
That's like a feud, but I guess
That is a feud.
I know, but it wasn't like a
Well,
come to
no.
blows.
He's not
I
gonna
guess
hit a
they
woman,
punch
that's
each
for
other.
I would hope not.
Yeah. And that's it. The rest of them I have, you had. But that's
Yeah.
John Calipari, John Chaney.
We got to get that on the
Yeah,
site,
put
and you
that
got to
up.
look up the Tulsa Wichita thing. I mean, it probably should have made the list because it's not major sports, but it's one of the funniest things
That's a
I've
good
ever seen.
list.
That's a great list. Yeah, thank you, Kevin
If you
Ireland.
missed anything, feel free to send us what you got. Post the links. We're
Yep.
happy to see
And
them.
we're always looking for top 10 ideas. So
Yep.
you could always post them on our Facebook page, on our the TriStateSportsGuys.com or Gmail, anything. So yeah, we're always looking for them.
When we come back, I'm ready for the 5 and 10.
Yeah,
do
let's
it,
do it,
brother.
yeah.
We'll be back. Tri-State Sports Guys.